Hello, and welcome to Understanding the Mathematics Florida Standards for Parents, Grade 3. Why have mathematics standards? Well, Professor Drew Weston of Emory University states, any standards should reflect best practices of schools, states, and countries around the world, because our kids deserve the best education we can give them. Just as every patient deserves a doctor whose knowledge is up to date, who knows the latest technology, every child deserves an education that's current and teaches them the technologies and the ability to learn new ones they'll need to succeed. Educational standards in America need to match or exceed the standards for the best performing countries in the world. Education should be about standards, not standardized tests. Those standards should set the bar high, but be similar enough across schools so that if your family takes a job across the country, is in the military and moves around, or just buys a home in a neighboring district, your child isn't either bored or disadvantaged because they don't know what's going on. That's why the states work together to develop standards for what kids ought to know by the end of each year. Standards don't tell any state, school, or teacher how to teach or what curriculum to use. That way, teachers can continue to use their knowledge and expertise and innovate in their classroom. And when something works, they can share it not just with teachers down the hall, but all over the country online. Kids need to learn how to use their knowledge to think carefully, critically, and creatively to solve new problems and new dilemmas. And if that's what we're teaching, and that's what we ought to be testing, to make sure we are succeeding and to help kids, schools, and districts that are struggling. The standards for mathematical practice provide a solid foundation that helps to anchor your child's learning of the mathematics. The content standards change each year as students progress through the grade level, which allows for continual growth and the development of mathematicians. The standards for mathematical practice are the backbone for building understanding in mathematics. These standards are consistent throughout all grade levels, kindergarten through 12th grade. As your child progresses through the grades, they will refine these mathematical behaviors. The bolded print identifies the skill that your child is using as they learn their math grade level standards. The content standards are broken up into the following domains for each grade level. Notice that the domain counting and cardinality is only found in kindergarten. Operations and algebraic thinking, numbers and operations in base 10, measurement and data, and geometry are consistent across all grade levels. In third grade, the domain numbers and operation fractions is introduced. Today, the key to success, whether you're a mechanic called in to fix something you've never seen before, or a medical professional dealing with an outbreak of some new disease, is the ability to transfer your skills from one domain to the next. Education needs to give our kids core knowledge and an ability to apply that knowledge in real-world settings. Listed are the critical areas for each grade level. Let's look a little closer at the grade 3 critical areas. In third grade, students will develop an understanding of multiplication and division strategies for multiplication and division within 100. They'll develop an understanding of fractions, especially unit fractions, which are fractions with a numerator of 1. Develop an understanding of the structure of a rectangular arrays and of area, and describe and analyze two-dimensional shapes. When developing an understanding of multiplication and division, students are going to need to understand and explain what it means to multiply or divide. When we look at the two examples, you can see the first example is a multiplication problem, and the second is an example of a division problem, and students should start to see the inverse relationship between the two. Continuing to develop students' understanding of multiplication and division strategies within 100, students are going to need to fluently multiply all one-digit numbers. For example, if they had 9 times 7, they might start by building an array and seeing that 9 rows of 7 gives them 63. But they also might make equal groups and see that if they put 7 objects in each group, they'll still end up with that 63. Then they should make that connection to repeated addition and see that 7 repeated 9 times gives them 63. Or 9 times 7 takes 63. Going through this process and seeing all these steps will help them to build fluency. It's important to note that fluency does not mean mastering a fact with instant recall. It just means having a strategy where they can get a solution in a reasonable amount of time. Also, to build fluency, students might use the distributive property. They might see with a problem like 6 times 7, they could break apart the 6 into 5 and 1. So 5 times 7 plus 1 times 7 are facts that they are efficient with, and they could solve both those and then add the products together. Additionally, third grade students need to multiply one-digit numbers by multiples of 10. Since they know that 3 times 4 is 12, they need to also understand that 3 times 40 would then be 120. Third graders may also be asked to solve two-step word problems using the 4 operations. They may need to write expressions which can be used to solve those given problems. Third grade students also need to understand fractions as numbers and represent fractions on a number line. For example, they should be able to understand what 1/3 is, 2/3, and they should also be able to represent them on a number line. Looking at developing an understanding of fraction, third graders need to compare the size of two fractions. In third grade, they're always going to be comparing fractions that have the same numerator or the same denominator, and their denominators will always be a 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, or 8. For example, Jimmy ate 2 pieces of pizza. Jane ate 2 of her pieces. Who ate more? Jane thought they ate the same amount. Jimmy thought he ate more. And if we look at that, Jimmy's pizza is broken into sixths, and Jane's pizza is broken into eighths. So we can see that 2/6 is greater than 2/8. Students also need to be able to express whole numbers as fractions and identify fractions that are equal to whole numbers. For example, 9/3 is equivalent to 3 wholes. Third graders will also develop an understanding of area and then make a connection to multiplication. Initially, they're going to learn to determine area by counting squares, but eventually they're going to move to see that connection to multiplication. Third graders will not need to use the formula for area, as that's something that's required for 4th grade. Third graders also describe and analyze two-dimensional shapes. They should see that both these shapes have 6 sides, so they're both hexagons. Or see this as a trapezoid, this as a rhombus or a parallelogram, and see this as a square, a rectangle, a rhombus, and a parallelogram. And all 3 of these shapes are all quadrilaterals. They should be able to look at a set of shapes and decide which properties they all have in common. There are a variety of county, state, and national websites you can look at to get more information about the Mathematics Florida standards. Remember, every child develops at his or her own pace. It's important to stay in contact with your child's teacher to further support their understanding of mathematics. Thank you for watching Understanding the Mathematics Florida Standards for Parents, Grade 3.